So I'm Gopu, been with EMA for 21 years. What I do is I help customers implement ECAD environments, centralized library, integrate to supply chain systems, business systems, and so on. A team of about 55 people that are focused on these technical type of services. So we're going to talk about supply chain driven circuit design. So what are the things that we care about when we say supply chain, because it's such a broad term, right? So the most important ones here are lifecycle, right? So when you use components on your design, you want to find out if the parts are active, obsolete, not recommended for your designs, and so on. You want to know inventory, lead time, multi-sourcing risk is, you pick a component and later on find out that there's only a single source and supply chain is going to feed that back to you. And then compliance, right, is the part that has compliance. The reason I put these four categories up there is this is what we see what engineers care about, right? So like I said, my role has been working with a lot of customers, doing process assessments, help them automate, integrate. So that's the experience that I want to share. Okay. So this is the traditional design flow. When I say traditional, I think it happens 80% of the time now too, right? Where you select components, you create a design, takes weeks, months, and then at the end of the design, you release your bill of material, and then supply chain takes your bill of material, compares it to a silicon expert type of solution. Are you familiar with silicon expert? With that? Okay. So typically what happens is, the supply chain team or purchasing, procurement, or even contract manufacturers, right? Then your design's done. They take the bill of material and send it to one of these sources. So the popular ones are Silicon Expert, C2 Data, and IHS. Right? These are the three top companies. You send them the bill of material, and they'll give you a supply chain risk assessment. How many parts are high risk, low risk, medium risk for various parameters. About 80% of the customers we work with use one of these solutions to compare the bill of material, right? And that's when you get ECOs back saying, this part has to be sub with some other part, or this part needs to be taken off the design, this part is high risk, and then that initiates redesign, changing components, and so on. Okay, it's pretty typical in most of the flows that you see. So what the problem here is, you're waiting till the end of the design cycle to validate the components that you originally used on the design, right? So basically what happens is supply chain is being considered at the end of the process. When you're selecting components, you don't even know if this part's gonna get rejected or not. And then it leads to the pre-design unpredictability and so on. So what we have done is essentially, I know I have Silicon Expert up there, and throughout my presentation, I'm going to use some Cadence tools, but the same thing is applicable regardless of whether it's Cadence, Mentor, or everyone has some level of solution that addresses these problems. So with Silicon Expert, what we did was we brought their data inside the design tool. So when you're selecting components, you'll see supply chain data. When you're generating a bill of material, you can validate the bill of material. When you want to run a report, you get supply chain information, right? So now supply chain intelligence is moving left. You can get all the data beginning of the design, making sure that you're looking at all those supply chain parameters before sending a bill of material over to supply chain for verification. Okay. Quick background on EMA. We've been doing this since 1989. We sell engineering software, have customers implement it, support them. We are a global company. We have resellers in Europe, India, UK, and we partner with a lot of other resellers as well. These are some of the logos of customers that we work with. I know they are the popular logos, but anyone doing a design of their basement is also our customer, right? So we have a variety of customers that we support for software. I'm assuming some of you are familiar with this brand, Ultra Librarian. About 6-7 years ago, we acquired this company. They are the largest CAD model provider out there. So if you go to TI, Analog, SD Micro, DigiKey, Arrow, any of these websites and search for a component, the CAD models come from us. The reason we did this was most of the CAD vendors were very focused on technology and not on content. also started adding a lot of reference designs up there. So you can search for a reference design and download it in any CAD format. Okay. So under the ultra-librarian brand, of course, we have a great relationship with all the CAD vendors out there. Altair, Ventor, Gators, Altium, Zuken, we work with everyone. So when we add a CAD model to our library, it's immediately available on distributor websites. It's available through various marketing outlets, through CAD tools, as well as the manufacturer website. Okay. So what we see now is we get at least 3 million downloads of CAD models a year from our website. So it's used a lot. We have over 325,000 registered users on this site. So if you're not using Ultra Librarian, I would recommend using it because it's free. We have contracts with all these IC manufacturers to develop CAD models and add it to our library. All right. So let's go through what an integrated CAD environment looks like, and we'll get into the supply chain topic. So this one slide talks about what is an integrated CAD environment. So when we go present to customers, they look at especially with IT, supply chain, engineering management, manufacturing, they want to know how can they roll out an environment that's integrated, right? Because they don't want engineering, ECAD, PCB in a silo. How do we deploy an environment that's fully integrated so that everyone's talking to each other and passing data back? So this is the slide that we've used for years. Not a lot hasn't changed because it's the same methodology that's worked really well for customers. So we typically draw a line between work in process and release to manufacture. The reason being, on the work in process side, when you're creating design, schematic, PCB, data is changing on a regular basis, right? So, I've seen from experience, customers keep talking about a single source of truth. They want a single source of truth. They want it in PLM. Some companies try to take the entire ECAD environment and tie directly to PLM, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work, right? So, because on the work in process side, information is changing regularly. PLM is for managing released, controlled information. Okay, so that's where we draw that line. So you start off with a team of ECAD users, schematic, PCB, and then first thing you need is a place to manage the data. So if you're using OrCAD, OrCAD is OrCAD EDM. Altium has their own solution, so does Mentor. But there is a data management platform that understands your native ECAD data, whether it's schematic or PCB or simulation. It understands that data. I've seen customers use Subversion or some other tool or PLM. The problem is those systems don't understand the PCB data or ECAD data, so it just doesn't manage it effectively. Okay? So we always recommend using a native data management platform from the ECAD vendor that can be used. Some companies it's a challenge because IT said we don't want another system out there, but we can help through that process, the benefits. Now we need a centralized CAD model library. So this is putting all your schematic symbols, PCB footprints, 3D models, simulation models, everything in a centralized location so that each user doesn't have their own library and then you're worried about cleanup a year from now. So having that centralized library for ECAD users in 3 parts, that's crucial. And now you need new components, right? Because you have a library of symbols, footprint, 3D models. What do you do when you need to add a new component, right? You want to make sure that any new library part that you add is a good part, is active. You don't want to add obsolete parts into your centralized library because then all the designs start using that part and then you have to clean up. So we have integrations to distributors, right? DigiKey, Mouse, or Arrow, or you can have a paid subscription with like Silicon Expert to get good CAD data, good parts into your library. We also have integration to our own Ultra Librarian solution, 16 million CAD models. So I'm pretty confident that you can find the model you're looking for in that library, whether it's single footprint or 3D model. We also have reference designs out there, right? So that solution is called OrCAD CIP. That will allow you to bring all of this external content into your centralized library. And then obviously you have your PCB design, simulation tools that you use, and then mechanical CAD collaboration. So all of these vendors have solutions for PCB design, simulation, and CAD collaboration. We are pretty much making sure everything is integrated, right, and not working in silos. So that's your work in process design environment. So the next thing that you need is making sure that that environment is tied to your enterprise system. So whether you're using Agile, Oracle, or sure that your CAD environment has the PLM information, like the company part number, the approved manufacturing names and part numbers, the status of the part, and so on. So we bring that data into your ECAD library so that your library has access to all that information. So what it does is when you're searching for parts and placing parts on your design, schematic or PCB, it has PLM data with it. So when you generate a bill of material, now it has PLM part numbers. When we do process assessments, we have seen how customers end up spending hours or days taking a bill of material and mapping it to information from PLM, and just so that they can release it to their PLM system. So this avoids that manual task, okay? Because the bill of material already has all the PLM data. You can also have a PLM ready package, because when you release a design into PLM, or if you're releasing a design to an external service to your contract manufacturer, this system allows you to have a consistent package set up, like a configuration manager. And then when you need a new part, there's a whole approval flow that needs to be set up. So this is where, like I said, regardless of the CAD vendor, everyone has these point tools. This shows you how a fully integrated environment works. Any questions? All right. So what's supply chain driven design? So when I say supply chain driven design, 4, 5, 6 years ago, I don't think we even had supply chain in the discussion when we meet with ECAD, right? Nobody cared. Because at that time, we want to get the design done, and supply chain issues are somebody else's problem, downstream. However, with everything that's been going on in the industry in the last few years, the component shortages, the lead time, you see DigiKey has X number of parts in stock today, and then 2 days later it's not there, right? This is a very tough world. We hear from a lot of customers how they lost market opportunity, lost revenue, only because of supply chain issues. So another thing that we are hearing the last 2 years is now engineering management or engineers have to make decisions on last time buy. So they have to actually look at this part on distributor websites, look at this part on the general industry level, and go to supply chain and say that we gotta buy this as a last time buy. I'm worried if this part will get out of stock. And so engineers have to make that decision now. So what are the different tasks linked to supply chain? Obviously, when you select a component for your design, you want to look at supply chain parameters. Then you introduce a new part, you want to make sure it's ready, it's good supply chain. Replacement parts, when you want to replace a part or when you validate your design. So that's huge, right? You created your design, you want to be able to validate it against supply chain information. When you generate a bill of material, you want to validate it. And overall, when you set up a CAD library, you want to make sure that it's kept up to date with supply chain data. So these are the 6 tasks where we've seen customers integrate their design environment to supply chain. And when you look at customers out there, so we have about 5,000 active customers, which maps to over 100,000 engineers using the software. So what we've seen is about 30% of our customers have a centralized library, because they have a team, there are multiple people using the tools, so they have a centralized library, and the remaining 70% are, they either have 1 license, maybe 2, but they don't have a centralized, they have their own library, right? So we wanted to make sure that when we solve the supply chain problem, we have solutions that can help customers who have a centralized managed control library, and those that have ad hoc libraries. It's just on their machine, right? It's not managed or controlled. So we have different solutions for the 2, and I'll go through them. So again, going into supply chain risk factors, these are the 4 things that people care about, and you'll see that in the remaining slides. So lifecycle is an obvious one, right? You want to make sure that your part is active, not obsolete. Sometimes it's not recommended for new designs. And in some cases, we have seen, especially in the defense space, 50-year life cycle products, right? Just because the part is obsolete doesn't mean you're not using it on your design, right? You got to definitively treat that. The second one is inventory and lead time, which became more prominent in the last few years. Multi-sourcing risk is probably the top reason why supply chain department or purchasing people reject a part. If you select a component, they want to be able to negotiate the best price. And if they see that it's a single source, they're like, you don't have much negotiating power here. You've got to find an alternate part. And then the last one is compliance. And some of these rejections, whether it comes through a PLM system or an inside OrCAD, you'll see a dashboard, and I'll go into details of this work. It just tells you, based on years to end of life, life cycle, inventory risk, ROHAS, multi-sourcing, how many components are green, red, blue, and each of these tell you if it's high, medium, low risk. Okay. So let's look at, for those who have a library that's ad hoc, that's on your machine, it's not managed or centralized, or even in much larger companies, the R&D group is still operating as ad hoc, right? They're not pulling parts from the centralized library, so they still have their own libraries that they use. So here, a quick demo, we have a DigiKey integration, it's called UltraBomb. So right inside the CAD tool, you can search for DigiKey data, you can cross-probe between the list. So what it does is, as soon as you open up a design, it reads all the design data, links it to DigiKey, and displays that tab with information. So you can cross-probe between that view and the component on the design. And if a part is not available on DigiKey's website or DigiKey's catalog, it will recommend alternate parts. And typically for capacitors or resistors, for example, you don't want to do it one at a time. So you can filter for certain capacitor based on part reference or value, and just update all those parts against DigiKey so it gets assigned a manufacturing part. So this app, it's going through the movie again, but this is called UltraBomb for DigiKey. We developed it 5 years ago, and when we launched it, year one, we had 14,000 customers who downloaded it in the first year. So it became a very popular app. It was free for the first year. But it goes to show that how much customers use this capability. And it's still available on our website, and I'll get into the details how you can get access to it. Like I said, open your design, it synchronizes with DigiKey, and then you can find parts, switch parts, and so on. Okay. If you want to add a new part, there's a part search window. You just type in a keyword just like you search on DigiKey, and it shows you parts with the DigiKey data, and then a place part button, because all of our entire library is already synchronized with DigiKey, right? So we have all that information. And you can just search and place parts from DigiKey directly onto your design. So you don't even have to leave your CAD interface to be able to search DigiKey and place parts on your design. I'm assuming you go to DigiKey's website, do some searches. All right. And then, the benefit of DigiKey is obviously all the parts on your design now have DigiKey part numbers mapped. You can do a single click, either download the bill of material or send it directly to DigiKey's shopping cart. And obviously, when you send it to DigiKey's cart, if DigiKey finds that one or two parts are not in stock, they'll make some recommendations for alternate parts, and then you can upload it, purchase the entire bill of material. Yeah. So it's right now it's available for $500 on our website, but if you reach out to me or Mike, we have a coupon code, so you get it for free. Okay. So we do this at seminars. If someone's interested, we can give you a coupon code. All right. So that was sort of the free stuff, right? I mean, you can still get a lot of supply chain validation with DigiKey. It's still the most popular site out there that when we ask customers, they have DigiKey site open, the CAD tool open, and they compare and research all the time. So this is Silicon Expert, right? So what this does is it's a paid subscription. It's about somewhere around $1,000 a year, but what it does is it gives you more comprehensive report, right? It runs this report, takes your design data, and now it will tell you how many parts are high, medium, low risk. You can go to the high risk part and find out why it is high risk. And like I said, these are the 4 things that it cares about: life cycle, multi-sourcing, compliance, and inventory. It's a paid subscription, but you get much more supply chain data. Right? It also allows you to get a BOM rating. Now we've seen some of our customers use this BOM report as part of the release process. So it takes your design data, creates this report, tells how many components are high risk, low and medium risk, and which parts are under those categories. And supply chain department loves this data because it just makes life easier for them too. Okay. This is the best part, right? So let's say a part is high risk or obsolete. This allows you to find alternates right inside the category, right? And it also tells you what is the risk level of those alternates. So if it recommends alternates and you go through the list, form, fit, function match and all that goes into a lot of detail. And if anyone's interested in getting a demo license of this, we can enable that too. It's like a 15-day demo license that they provide. Again, it operates right inside the CAD tool. It's not like you have to get outside of your CAD tool.
Excuse me. One quick question. Does it when it finds an all silicon expert finds an all, does it actually confirm the footprint match?
Yeah, so it basically tells you if there is any difference in package. Okay. So to get to your question, the CIP tool, the OrCAD CIP tool, will compare symbol and footprint and tell you if there are any mismatches. So what Silicon Expert does is it tells you if there are any pin mismatches, at a high level. But the OrCAD CIP tool will get you more data. Now we're going into customers who actually have a centralized library, right? It's managed. So the difference is it's a managed library. You have to be more cautious about the new parts that you have, right? Because if you add a bad part, it's gonna spread to other designs, other people, what they release and so on. So let's look at this view here. So OrCAD CIP allows you to access all the distributors, whether you want to use DigiKey, Future, Arrow, New Work, or want to use all of them. You can search for part information right inside OrCAD. It'll go reach out to the distributors. You can look at the part data and then basically download part data right into your library and design. It's that whole integration is free of charge. As long as you have OrCAD CIP, you have access to all these distributors. So right now, if you don't have this, what I've seen users do is they go to the distributor website, search for a part, download the CAD model, add it to the library, then place it on the design. Probably takes 5 to 10 minutes for each part, right? So this basically cuts that time. You can just drag and drop parts right onto your design from these distributors. Okay. So the best part is, let's say you downloaded a part from DigiKey or Arrow or Mouser, the information is synchronized. Okay, so you can set up a scheduler that says, every day I want to synchronize information. I downloaded a part today, I want to make sure that part data is updated. So if DigiKey changed pricing or inventory, or if Arrow changed, based on where you downloaded the part from, it will automatically update that information into your library. Okay? As long as you download it from their website. That link is established when you download it. So that was the free part. Now the paid is Silicon Expert, right? Silicon Expert, obviously the data is more, it's much more comprehensive because they are a supply chain solution. They don't sell components. So here you can actually run a report. So this is running a report of your entire library, not design, not bill of material. It reads your entire library and tells you how many parts are high risk, medium risk for those specific parameters. And you can click on each piece of the pie and it will show you the parts that fall into that category, and you'll go into more detail. So if a part is high risk, obviously you can go and find why it's high risk and find alternates. So that was your entire library. Okay. Now let's say you're working on a design and you want to just compare that, run a report on that design, right? So OrCAD CIP will allow you to, this is the design that's already open, so it can natively pull information from that design into CIP and run that exact same report, not at a live level, but at that design level. So what you're seeing there is it pulled the BOM from the design and compared that data against Silicon Expert. And it shows you the same exact report, but at the design level. If you have a bill of material that's already there, you can just bring it in and do the same thing too. This just makes life a little easy because it treats the design that's open. Okay. Here's where, again, the synchronization part, right? Because data is changing regularly, right? Inventory is changing, risk is changing, price is changing. So this makes sure that the data is synchronized. So right now, there's an option to push that synchronize button, which will bring all the latest data. But you typically schedule it to run twice a day or something like that. So you don't have to push that button. But it keeps that data updated against Silicon Expert. And it's amazing, like if you watch this, traditionally the data was like more consistent, but now it's changing like almost every day for some of these. Okay. You can also use the Silicon Expert integration to download new we have also librarian, the CAD model library integrated to all of these. So whatever part you download will come with a CAD model that you can place on your design. So couple more things that I wanted to show quickly is based on time. This is so the challenge with supply chain data is this a lot of data. Like if you open the CIP compliance module, you'll probably see when we started with DigiKey alone had thousands of fields, and we were like, which field do we display engineers? Because first of all, engineers don't have the time to look at all the supply chain data. It's just too much, and more than half of the data is like, what are these fields of information? So we were able to work with the distributors and Silicon Expert to have a dashboard of, these are the 10 fields that engineers would care about, and that worked. But now, you need more than that, right? You need like one thing to tell you, is that part high, medium, low risk, rather than looking at 10 fields and making that decision. So Silicon Expert is actually working on something called the Resiliency rating. So what it does is, your supply chain group and purchasing, supply chain, they look at different parameters, right? Lifecycle, inventory, lead time, price. It's like all these parameters, and you basically say, this is 60%, this is 20%, you're building that grading cycle, right? And then once you set that up, you'll get a score. So you don't have to look at all the details. You'll get a score between 1 to 10. That tells you whether that part, you want to use that part or not. So your supply chain or purchasing team will set that up once in the system, and all you get is a score, right? So here's an example. So this customer set it up, and they're using a component. So this report shows up right inside the CAD tool, basically saying resiliency rating is 1.9 out of 10, right? So you don't want to use that part. And the reason being, these are the risks: inventory, sourcing, origin is where that part's coming from, because that a cyclone or storm or whatever in certain regions can impact the supply chain big time nowadays, right? Hopefully it doesn't happen, but we have experienced it, how a flood is going to impact supply chain. So basically the interpretation of this data is you get to know, is it a commonly used part? You know your bill of material, how many bombs does it affect? Some parts have, other frequent shortages. Is it single source or alternate? And these are the strategic choices they recommend. You need buffer stock, and that's what the engineering management says. You need to have buffer stock, right? And how do you implement the disruption scenario? Like, what if something like this happens? What's your backup? So this is very new that Silicon Expert is working on, this resiliency rating. But I think this is going to change the way we do these supply chain integrations, because throwing a lot of data at the engineer or the designer is like, what do I do with this data, right? Having this rating is going to change how they select components. So this is new. I don't think it's out there yet, but we do have some customers testing. So that was a lot of information I threw at you. A lot of supply chain. Any questions?
Actually, I have a couple, if you will. So, in that last slide, you talked about, supply chain disruptions, right? We think about, well, there's always some dramatic thing that's going on, a typhoon in one country or an earthquake in another, or what have you, or the few years back when Iceland, the volcano erupted, it disrupted this, planes going back and forth. So, how much of this is reliant on the component distributor to update its system, to accommodate those real-time changes versus just your ability to customize, like as a customer, like, hey, look, I know this is happening. I want to add in some risk mitigation factors.
Yeah, great question. So over the past few years, the distributors, there are like ECIA, there are consortiums like that wants that data too, but the distributors have information that supports this, right? So the risk mitigation is, you look at a component, is it being manufactured in different locations? Like you said, what if something like a flood happened in one location? Is there an alternate part that's being manufactured in another location? Is there the same part being manufactured in another location? All that data is now stored. So when you select a component based on origin, you can find out the risk of that part. If that part's being only manufactured in one location and all the alternates are also manufactured in one location, the
And then how does it tie in? Okay, if I'm a designer at an OEM, okay, but we outsource, our assembly. How does this tie into their ERP so that like it can? Do I need to manually update them as any schedule changes, based on what I've learned here, or can that all consolidate?
Yeah, we've seen customers do it, a couple of ways. One is either that, whether using an assembly house or a contract manufacturer, service bureau, right? We're seeing where they are integrated to these providers like Silicon Experts, E2 or IHS, and they push that information back. Or we have seen where nowadays where these companies are being more proactive at bringing that information in and supplying that data. Ideally, both of them should subscribe to that service and make sure they have that data in the ECAD environment, but at least one of them must have. And they feel off, they'll pass that back to the OEM, right? Here's the bill of material with the additional data, here's why we cannot use these parts. But the thing is to catch them at the design level, right? That's the big change we are seeing in the industry, right? Whereas traditionally, none of this happened at the design level. Right? Always waited for the design to be over, or at a bomb review. By then you've already decided which components, you've already drawn out your circuit, and now you have to go back and make changes. Nobody like to make changes, right? Okay.
One question, librarian. So, again with the footprints, are they checked against IPC standards at all?
Yeah, so we have a couple of library teams at EMA, right? The Ultra Librarian team, like I said, we have contracts with the IC manufacturers to build symbols and footprints to IPC spec. So if it's not following IPC spec, let us know, because that, sometimes we have customers who download the footprint and say that, this doesn't meet my spec. We have to make it to IPC so that, it's usable for more companies. But in some cases, we